problem with advertising is that it needs to be funded. And it's funded by the highest bidder. In order for someone to end up in the advertising slot of media, it has to be the highest bidder. The one who's willing to pay the most money to get their message across to the people gets the spot, gets access to the most people's minds, gets access to the most powerful computer on the planet, which is the human mind. Now, the computer of the human mind works instinctively by correlating relationships. For example, if the human mind perceives a symmetrical face, their instinct is to correlate symmetry with healthy parenting, with health, etc., and with the better likelihood of healthy offspring. And so there's an attraction. There's a heuristic correlation system of decision making. When we see peace and natural beauty and stillness, etc., our minds say, this is a good thing. This is a good system. Because the type of system that produces this peace must be relatively intelligent, or things would look ugly and be dirty and be sick and poor and falling apart. This semi-conscious heuristic corollary brain processing and programming system works very well with unedited reality, because unedited reality typically follows these rules. You can find incompetence at the heart of severely ugly, poor, painful realities. However, what an advertiser does is it edits the script. An advertiser takes a product which will make the advertiser a lot of money. Now, this bit is important because the product that will make the advertiser the most money is a product that costs very little to produce relative to the cost of the buyer, and that a lot of buyers, or at least some, will purchase. So you've got to meet those criteria. Now, if you are an excellent craftsperson, if you are a truly, if you really go all out and give to the customer, you're not going to make a lot of money. If you're a landscaper and you carefully sculpt every little stone piece to build a stone retaining wall, and you give the price as $10,000, and your competitor gives the price of $7,000, but just throws them together, doesn't cut a single one, they're going to make more money, even at $7,000, because it might take you a year to carefully fit every single stone and cut it and hew it and find the right piece and do it just so. Whereas it took them a day to just throw this done. In other words, the person who makes the most money invests the least energy into the equation. The person who makes the least money invests the most time, the most energy, buys the finest thing, And there is a price point at which people will not pay. Whether it's $1 billion or $1 trillion or 10 million or 100,000, there's a point where the customer will not pay. So the company that is the most interested in selling a product is the company that can make the highest profit per sale. Because if you can convince some people to buy it, and you can put 10% of energy into it and get 100% back, if you can 10x your money by doing this and this and this, if you can 10x your money, then you want to sell that product. Costs you $1, you sell it for 10, you definitely want to sell that product. Now, if it costs you $12 and you can sell it for 10, you do not want to sell that product, but it is a superior product. You as the customer want the product that costs $12 and is a good product and is being sold for $10. But who's going to advertise that product? Who's going to pay money to sell something that the more they sell, the more they lose money? No one. Unless they've got, a clearance level of inventory and they've just got to get it out of there at whatever loss possible, and they've got to get it out in a hurry or they're going to lose everything. But nobody's going to go out and buy things for $12 so that they can sell them to you for 10 or 8. But that's, of course, the best deal for the customer. And so advertising gets sold to the highest bidder, and the highest bidder over time, statistically, is the one who makes the most profit. Over time, statistically, the one who makes the most profit is the one who gives the least value to the customer. And so, in essence, the more something needs to be advertised, the more something is advertised in order to get you to buy it. Now, there are 3 lies that lie at the heart of all advertising. The first lie is that what's being sold is the best for you. Typically, the best thing for you is the best possible product in the best possible category at the best possible price. And that can never be sold, or very rarely be sold for the highest price of advertising. So that's the first lie. There's another lie that says that we, the radio station, we, the TV station, we, the app, we, the government, whatever, are picking these advertisers because they're good, as opposed to who's most noteworthy. For example, there might be a little girl who wants to have everyone in the neighborhood plant trees for Tree Day, but she gets knocked off because how's she going to pay the radio station, the TV station money to tell her story? She can't do it, so her story gets bumped off. There's someone else who has a tip on how to save money on dental care, but they're not going to pay $30,000 to tell you how to save money on dental care, so they get bumped off. And then someone has an ad that they'll pay for cream pies that make you fat, that challenge your liver, that have all kinds of side complications that are grown unsustainably. But because it only costs them a few pennies to make this cream puff and they can sell it for $1, they're very motivated to blast, and they'll pay a lot of money. So they go on. So you get programmed to buy cream puffs and not to plant trees. So the next lie is that the product is actually the best one for you to buy. So you generally have category lies, because you might have a lot of lies or a lot of ads to sell Porsche. Because if one Porsche sells for $100,000, $200,000, let's say somebody makes $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So they can invest $10,000 in advertising in such a way that they sell one Porsche and everyone has to listen to it. And they net 20 because they have to pay the 10,000, they net 20. So there may be a lot of Porsche ads or some other thing along those lines. Now, there's a tremendous amount of lying going on in a Porsche ad. So they'll talk about it's the fastest. Well, first of all, it no longer is. Tesla Model S PD100 is going to beat a Porsche every single time, so it's not the fastest. But the other lie is, why are you showing those specs at all? That's a lie. Now, the big lie in talking about the top speeds of cars is that 99% of people, 99.9% of the time, are never going to drive those top speeds. Not only because it's not good for your health to drive at 180 miles an hour or whatever it is, but because even if it was good for your health, you couldn't do it legally, and even if you could do it legally, there's so much traffic you don't get to drive that amount anyway. So spending all that money on speed is not intelligent based on health and well-being. So there's a lie around that. Then you have the lie around ecology. Putting all of that money into speed, etc., generally consumes more resources. It burns up the motor, the batteries wear out faster, whatever. It's hard on the engine to be up in 8, 9 red, in RPMs. So it's not good for the car. It's not good for you. It's not good for the environment. So who determines it's a selling point, as opposed to you get dinged for wasting everyone's money, etc., on something that's not good for anyone? Then you have the lie of association. So you have the idea that there's this beautiful woman who loves you because you have a Porsche. And that's a lie. And there may be women who have been lied to that have been programmed, who've been auctioned off to the highest bidder. Because when a government or a radio station sells advertising to the highest bidder, what they're doing is they're selling the people to the highest bidder. They're saying, if anyone wants access to the programs, to the biological programs of all of our people, our listeners, whatever, you can have it. We don't care what it is as long as we don't get in trouble and you pay us a lot of money. Well, that's a lie. We appreciate you for being our listeners. That's why we're going to sell your bodies to the highest bidder. It's not a lot of appreciation, is it? It's prostitution. And it's not a very friendly form of prostitution. But the other thing, let's take the dynamic of the beautiful, appreciative, seductive woman, throwing herself all around the Porsche. The man typically wants the woman, and his brain is being told that to get the woman, he has to have a Porsche. Now, in order to get the Porsche, he has to work long hours. often in our culture doing something you don't particularly like, because mature industries that are less relevant to the future pay more money than new frontiers. For example, if you want to design a new way to recycle garbage, it's a new frontier. You're not going to be paid tremendously well. But if you want to do banking, an old industry, that we don't really need that many new bankers for the world to survive. It's not like, what's going to make the big difference in the next 100 years? Oh, another banker. But an engineer that turns garbage into energy, huge benefit to the culture. But where do you go to be hired for that? So in order to make a lot of money, in order to buy this noisy, low-to-the-ground car that is never going to be able to run at full speeds, or you have to then spend money to go off to a racetrack, it's not like it's useful. It's not like it gets you to work any faster, because you're in the same traffic as everyone else who's driving a Subaru that couldn't get over 30 miles an hour for this stretch of 101 anyway. So it's not like it's useful. It's noisy, consumes more gasoline, consumes more money, is more expensive to repair, is low to the ground, is tremendously uncomfortable. But an advertiser got into your mind at age 6 and said, this was the car to have. You were sold out. By the station, by the cult, by the government, by the advertiser. This is the car to have. The 12-year-old bought into it. Now you wanted one. What you really wanted was feeling important. But it's not doing much of that. Because you're not important because you drive a gas-guzzling, idiotic car that spews out gas. You're not important. That doesn't make you important, except in the eyes of a 12-year-old. So there's so many lies into this. Now, the next lie comes in the pitch. In order to sell the pitch that this 150,000 or 150 mile an hour car is really important to have, you have to show someone driving, high speeds. The only trouble is there's no open roads where it's safe and legal and where there's not so much traffic to drive it. So what the advertisers do in order to lie is they get a permit to close the street down. Now, you have to wonder, how is it public interest that you can't drive on your street for a day so that Porsche can clear an entire section of road of traffic? How do you clear a section of road? You give the government a bribe. Here, we'll give you, the government, not the people, we'll give you, the government, money. If we give you enough money, we want a permit to shut down the street and inconvenience everyone so that we can create the illusion that our car is important. So we're going to drive around, so we're going to shut this whole section of road down for a day. And then we're going to add to traffic further by bringing in a film crew, etc., to further congest the remaining roads. Then we're going to film the car pretending to snake along through roads that don't have any traffic on them, so that you'll wish you could be in that world, which doesn't exist. Because when you go to get a permit to drive your Porsche, so they got a permit to shut it down so they could lie to you. But when you go to get a permit and say, I'd like to have a permit to shut down this whole section of Highway 101 so that I can drive the way I was promised in the ad. They say, we're not going to give you a permit for that. Well, how much did they pay? $10,000, $20,000, $30,000? We're not going to give you the permit to have one go at what you were promised at, driving down a road free of traffic. You're not going to get it. It's going to be packed with traffic. So you're lied to about what is important. And then the final joke is that having a Porsche, whether or not it gets you laid by teenagers from time to time, does not determine a good marriage. In many cases, the person who's off selling their soul to the highest bidder to do work they don't like for long hours to pay for a Porsche is a very unattractive husband because they're not there. And neither is the Porsche. So the whole thing is packed with lies. And the question is, what kind of person, what kind of company, what kind of group would allow themselves to be programmed by the highest bidder? Because unfortunately, associative neurological and physiological programming is built in. If you watch someone you admire go drink a beer, you want to drink a beer more. Oh, that's a good idea. Let me have a beer. If you watch someone, sitting next to a big-breasted woman, that you've got heuristic programming that's outdated. That big-breasted woman is not going to give you milk, but your body thinks it is. Anyway, that big-breasted babe sitting next, I should have a cigar. Oh, the sunglasses. I need to go in a darkened room, put on sunglasses so that I can see even less. The whole thing is built on lies. And what kind of person sets themselves up to be lied to? And what kind of people sell their audience, sell their people to the one who will pay the highest price to tell that lie? Because you're never going to have an advertiser saying, our competitor offers 80% of our value for half the price, which is a perfectly probable scenario in the case of advertising, because the competitor couldn't afford the ad by lowering their prices so that you get 80, maybe even more value for half the price. But you could pay the ad because you took the medicine, the capsule, you put it in a 20% bigger bottle, then you cut the pills in half, which is another lie. So it looks bigger. Theoretically, do you want the big bottle of medicine or the small bottle? Oh, I want the big one. And the big one is cheaper. It's a no-brainer until you open the cap and realize it's only 20% of it filled with capsules. You were lied to. Meaning you got to constantly think through a sociopathic environment to figure out how they're trying to lie to you next. The dark side of advertisement is it's built on lies with blood money, and the blood is ours.